Hello and welcome to today's PanelCast, Key Trends and Observations in Information Security. Today's event is brought to you by Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and BXNAP. This event is produced by Actual Tech Media, and my name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media. I'll be the moderator for today's PanelCast event. So thank you everyone for joining us. Before we get started, we have just a little bit of housekeeping information here that we first should cover. First off, we want this to be an educational event. We received hundreds of questions and comments from the landing page when you all registered. All those questions have been combined into what I believe are the best questions and the most common questions for the PanelCast discussion today. We'll also be taking live questions. We'll be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of today's discussion, and we encourage you to submit your questions through the GoToWebinar control panel there, and we'll be queuing those up for that Q&A at the end of the event. We'll also be giving away 3 $100 Amazon gift cards to 3 lucky live attendees on today's event. If you're watching this on demand, I'm sorry, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found at events.actualtechmedia.com. I also want to encourage you to check out the 3 handouts that are available for download there in your, or I'm sorry, 2 handouts that are available for download in your audience control panel. In the GoToWebinar control panel there, it says handouts, and you can go ahead and download those 2 PDFs now because they won't be easily accessible after the event. So before I do a little bit of stage setting and introduction on the event today, I want to first introduce you to today's expert panelists. They are Mr. William Bell, Executive Vice President at BXNAP. William, thank you for being on the event today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Dave.
And we're also joined by Mr. James M.T. Morrison, Distinguished Technologist in Cybersecurity at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. James, thank you for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got some great topics lined up for today. We've been doing a little pre-call discussion, and I'm already learning a lot. I know the audience will as well. Now, before we jump into it with our first question, I wanted to do just a little bit of stage setting here. I mean, I'm a former IT manager myself, many years securing an enterprise with 75 remote locations, 2,500 end users. I know back then security was painful and stressful, and something to kind of keep you up at night. But today, when I talk to IT professionals out there and we get questions from the audience on these types of events, I can tell it's even more of a frightening time in IT. When it comes to security, we have ransomware and phishing attacks that are just a constant threat. These types of things are in the evening news, it seems like, all too frequently. In fact, my local fire station, just this last week, I got a news report that my local fire station, their servers were being held by ransom. So scary times. And we in IT, I think, are also being asked to do more with less. Like, why can't security just be easy and efficient, for the people who don't really understand the complexities? And what we in IT, in my opinion, really need are smarter, more efficient security solutions to just help make security just natural, just part of our IT organization, not something that we're daily pulling our hair out about and losing sleep over. So I know that HPE and BXNAP both have some really impressive security solutions on that front, and we'll be learning about those throughout our panel discussion today. So with that, let's jump into it with our very first question. The question here, and this was, I would bet roughly 30% of the comments that came in were about this topic, and that is, with COVID-19, all staff are working from home. Do you have any security recommendations for that scenario? And other comments around that topic also, we're asking about dealing with challenges, security challenges of a workforce that has suddenly become remote. So why don't I go ahead and start off with you, James? Any suggestions for a lot of companies who I know are dealing with these sudden remote work challenges?
Did you want to do any introductions, or you want us to just kind of roll it in as we go? Or
Yeah, absolutely. Why don't we do that? James, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do at HPE?
Okay, so my name is James Morrison. I just started with HP in December of 2019. Came off of a 22-year career of the FBI doing cybercrime and doing investigations, at a kind of that level, both nation state as well as ransomware investigations. I'm a computer engineer by trade, but I've been in the IT field for over 30 plus years. Worked in the military. I'll show my age a little bit. I did old Unix system administration, back on the DEC Ultrix machines and AT&T and all that kind of stuff. So I've kind of been around a while, but I've really kind of been heavily involved in cybercrime over the last 8 years, really. And so now with HPE, my job is to, number one, be customer facing, talking about the security challenges that customers are seeing, but also talking internally to make sure that the security conversations we're having are, number one, real. I can't just throw the word security in and not, have a real security offering. And then also working with partners. HP does a lot of partnerships. And so what we want to do is help those partners also put their security messaging together and get sort of this, what we call the pan HPE security, message that's not just built on around a single product. Because I'm a big believer that it's the systematic approach that's going to win the battle, not a single black box.
I like that. Very realistic. And so before we answer the question, then, William, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, so my name is William Bell, Executive Vice President of Products at BXNAP. We're a global infrastructure as a service company, been around since 2010. And our kind of focus, versus other infrastructure players out there is information security. It's kind of core to our everyday life. So my responsibilities revolve around building all of our products and offerings, but I come from information security field. That is where I started my career. I was a Linux systems administrator and then moved into information security, which is kind of a natural progression for some folks. You get to learn about all the bits and bytes when you're doing like open source systems administration.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, that kind of drags you into the information security field if you let it do it to you. So I'm happy to be here today.
Well, excellent. I'm very thankful to have both of you here today with many years of experience in the industry. So thank you for being here. And I guess let's kick it off with this question. Back to you, James.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting because, I actually I'm writing a blog post kind of around the same direction of, 60 days ago, our IT was sort of based around the status quo. Most companies, if you're lucky, you had maybe 5 to 8% of your people working more than half time from home. You may have had as many as 25, 30% of your people logging in every so often. And so you're very much based around things like VPNs, maybe a little Citrix built in. And so now you could have as many, I think the study I showed from Forrester was 58% of companies now have at least a half their workforce working from home. So it's an immediate change in traffic. It's an immediate change in what resources are being needed. And so the first thing you're going to do from a sudden remote workforce is, how am I going to tune that up? What kind of contract, let's say I'm in VPNs, I'm using VPNs. What kind of contract do I have built into dynamically changing the number of VPN tunnels? How many, how's my firewall configured for remote, numerous logins coming through the firewall? And then the security challenges, of course, are going to be ridiculous. A lot of companies can't supply corporate-owned machines, so they're relying on people to use their personal laptops, personal computers. And come on, we all know. I mean, some of those computers are cesspools, right? I mean, the kid was just literally, playing, video games on the machine or doing something else. So, if you have a teenager doing something else, and now you're somehow expecting them to have magic security. It's a huge challenge. And so one thing we're looking at is, and this is even immediate, but long-term is, virtual desktop infrastructures. Is that something that we need to deploy? And there's some in the stimulus package that was finally, passed, or it looks like it's going to get passed today. There's money for that. And so there's an opportunity here of, what's it going to look like, and start trying to visualize where we're going to go in the future. Is this going to be permanent? Are we going to be in a world where now the remote workforce is going to be more of our reality? And so maybe if we get a time to, get a chance to breathe, maybe it's a good opportunity to take it, take the crisis and try to get money and immediate to change what we're doing. And so I think you're going to see a huge rise in VDI, and both, locally homed as well as remotely homed. And then we have to start looking at what's my security feature going to be there. Most of our security probably isn't going to be built really around a remote workforce. So it's, you're going to have to start building relationships with companies that will provide sort of that remote security. And that may be another thing that we need to be looking at sooner rather than later, especially once we get over the initial ramp up of changing over to remote workforce.
Very good advice. Yeah, I totally see that. Companies struggling with all of a sudden, having this remote workforce, and then security in many cases is an afterthought to some degree.
Well, and so many of our networks are built still sort of in that top-down north-south. And that's going to be a huge problem because, a lot of if our networks aren't structured for that kind of data flow, you're going to overwhelm firewalls, you're going to overwhelm a lot of that front end. And so you're going to have to start looking at how do I change the traffic pattern, and getting into more of an east-west traffic pattern. And then that creates trust issues. And so, of course, we're a big push on the zero trust model. It has to be something we look at. How do we deploy it? And that'll be something, I guess, we'll beat on, across the next 45 minutes or so.
Absolutely. William, what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I mean, it was an interesting you learned use case for me. We had our executive meeting, I don't know, maybe like last Tuesday. And we started talking about, okay, what is this impact? I think the one thing we realized, we're in the infrastructure service business, we're in the data center business. Our BC and DR plans are pretty immense, right? All the certifications that we have to go through and everything. But just kind of reflecting on our own organization, the one thing that we weren't prepared for was business continuity issues globally at the same time.
Yeah.
And that was the one, like, yeah, sure, we could move this office over here or do this right here. But just to say that everyone's now not in the office, any office, anywhere, was this kind of unique challenge for us. And it had all the impacts that James talked about, VPN users, VPN throughput, et cetera, et cetera. But I truly believe that the one he hit on that's the most important was this kind of like endpoint security issue, right? Where these endpoints are just garbage. And most businesses, non-enterprise businesses, don't have budgets that provide every employee with a laptop to be at home working from home. And I think that it really started to shine into fruition around, what does the home security profile look like, but also what does the home infrastructure profile look like, right? Do they even have enough bandwidth at home to do VDI or to do a voice, right? Even with any type of quality. So call centers that are being remote call centers now. I mean, there's so much change. And I think that the biggest security recommendations that I can provide are, find a way to have a very comprehensive BYOD endpoint security position. And then also, double check, all of your data paths, as James kind of explained, making sure that you understand where's your data, where's the data being exchanged, and what are you doing to secure it along the way, right? To make sure that either at rest at the endpoint or in the cloud or in transit, you have a kind of a comprehensive security structure. And it'll take time. I mean, this other thing is that realize that you can't be perfect. You can't just, last week was this way, this week is the next way, and it's going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. It's going to take years, right, for us to really understand all the security implications, plus commit to working on them. That's the thing that I would say for people is commit to working on them.
Well, you brought up a great thing, with this disaster recovery plan, because a lot of cybersecurity people have been out there for years telling people, do you have a plan? 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 And a lot of times, you get the, yeah, I got it. But now now the ones that had a plan,
Master planned.
yeah, now they at least they had some idea of it. The ones that had no plan are scrambling, and so I think you're going to see this huge. Of course, unfortunately, sometimes it takes sort of, and you're right, from a worldwide standpoint. Yeah, we saw it with Tropical Storm Imelda or Hurricane Harvey here down in Houston, where
Yep.
okay, I can do a colo or a disaster recovery for a location, but you always were relying upon your other locations being up and 100% or 90% operational.
Yep.
Now what
Totally.
happens? So it's a completely different scenario.
Yeah, you make a great point. I mean, if a company does have a disaster recovery plan, it was for the loss of the data center. But
Right.
I think so many companies didn't have these in-depth
People plans.
business continuity, work from home plans for everyone, in the whole company, much less security solutions for them. And you bring up zero trust. I am interested in talking about that here coming up in our session as well.
Well, here's what's kind of interesting also is I was reading reading studies. That's what I do sometimes, especially when I'm sitting at home. But the Gen Zs and the Millennials, one of the things they've been pushing for a long time is the ability to work from home and to do more remote work. And I think I saw a study that 80% of them were willing to take less pay if they could work from home at least half time. And so it's going to be very interesting also to see from that dynamic going forward is does that push start to gain more weight in the boardroom, especially if they think they can maybe tweak out a little bit of a savings in that to allow that kind of a lifestyle. I mean, I know when I was in the FBI, we had a number of people that quit because there was no ability to do any sort of telework. A lot of people want that flexibility, and so it'll be interesting to see, in the next year or so how that maps out.
Yeah, and it's a very important skill. In fact, I saw a statistic this week that said 10 years ago, people who worked from home made 10% less in income. Today,
Right.
people who work from home make 5% more in income than their comparable counterparts in the office, which I was like, well, okay.
And there's an increase in productivity. They've actually measured an increase in productivity for people that are working from home. So it is a very, it's definitely going to at least start being a conversation piece, I think.
Very good, very good. So let's move on to this next question, and that is, how can we proactively stop ransomware and cyber attacks? William, why don't we go to you first on this one?
Yeah, I mean, so I feel, on the ransomware side, I feel like I have the ultimate ransomware protection. Executing on it is interesting. Now, there's all kinds. I mean, you could go into a enterprise-wide binary whitelisting scenario where every binary has to be whitelisted by some centralized party or some type of heuristic, and that'll probably take out most of it, right? It's just impossible to implement. I know because I tried like in 2006 to do enterprise-wide binary whitelisting. But the reality is a trusted and secure backup is the only thing you have really against it. Is that if you can if you can do data protection properly, and you can ensure that you have a good quality, known good backup that is recent enough for your own kind of recovery point objective that you have in your company. It's the ultimate. It really truly is. It's like, you eradicate it and it's the data is not gone. It may be temporarily disrupted. And then you can kind of move into that cyber attack category and just say, okay, how do I increase my availability through ensuring that we can detect these things and remediate them quickly, and et cetera, et cetera. Zero trust is kind of one of those things I think that a lot of people, really underestimate. Is we've been big in the we're big in VMware. It's kind of one of our main core practice areas, and one of the core concepts of NSX from the very beginning was microsegmentation and kind of that zero trust networking. And you'd be just absolutely shocked at how much ransomware can be stopped by solid network segmentation and microsegmentation and application level policies of network segmentation. East-west basically becomes a thing. It's more like mesh security, because the traditional network is so easy. It's like, oh, I got behind the firewall and now I'm gonna destroy your network. And yeah, we've got to kind of start getting there for sure.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would probably caution now, I guess, is that we've started to see a change in ransomware attacks. And Maze ransomware was one that really showed this. Is not only do they come in and try to lock your data down, but they steal data. So it's also it's sort of a two-factor thing. Now it's not only it's a data breach plus ransomware, and the MGM Grand was a very interesting issue where they were hit a year ago, and they thought everything was cool and clean, and then the bad guy decided to post their customer information onto a public website and caused the reputational loss. And so we're going to start seeing more of that, where the criminals are actually outing people who are hit but don't pay the ransom. So that's a very interesting sort of dynamic from the ransomware side. You're absolutely right. I mean, we separate things into detection, protection, and then recovery. Recovery's the biggest thing from a ransomware standpoint, making sure you have solid backups and backups that are not reachable. The first thing the bad guy is going to reach for is your backups. So you've got to make sure that if we have a product called SimpliVity that it does VM backups, but the hypervisor doesn't have a constant connection to the actual backups. So when the bad guy kind of jumps in there and looks for the backups through the SimpliVity product, there's no mapping there. The mapping is done sort of dynamic at backup time. So that's kind of cool. But to stop it, I think you're on the zero trust model is a big part of it, but I think user-based analytics is going to be the end all be all for it. And there's a lot of companies out there that are providing it, things like CrowdStrike and Mandiant FireEye, and they've got some great products where it says, hey, this user logs in, and whether we don't think about it, we all sort of follow the same sort of pattern of life when we come in, even remotely. Remotely, people typically log in about the same time from a similar IP address or coming out of the same, if you log in through Comcast or AT&T or whoever, all of that is somewhat traceable. And then when that behavior changes, or we see concurrent logins, that's where user-based analytics starts to say, whoa. That's not normal. Or when, so ransomware is kind of an interesting model, especially from a criminal standpoint. Statistically, it'll take them, when they first hit you with phishing, which is where it's going to start, it's going to take them 8 hours to determine what network they're on. So it's going to take them a little while to figure it out. So you have a window of opportunity there. But there was also a report that came out, so I think it was Mandiant that put it out. They will take 3 days before they start actually spreading the ransomware across your network. So there's these windows of opportunity here where if you have a good threat-based, user-based analytics, that is looking at this kind of data, why is this computer talking to this computer peer-to-peer? It's going to flag it. One of the biggest problems we have, though, with things like Mandiant and some of these MSSPs is a lot of companies don't have a good mechanism for handling the alerts they get. And I don't know how many times I went out to companies that have been hacked and hit, and they're like, well, we have a contract with this MSSP, and you go talk to that MSSP, and they say, well, there's 12,000 emails in their inbox, in the alert box that they've never answered. So it's not just about having some sort of external threat alert. It's also about having a good solid mechanism where you have somebody whose job it is to make sure that those alerts are handled on a daily basis. Otherwise, and that's where IT and security have to be somewhat separate. You have to have a person who that's their entire job is to check those security alerts, making sure that that's getting patched, especially if it's a critical. So I think that's where it's going to come, is when we start. There's also an interesting thing, though, is I have some old, of course, a lot of ex-FBI friends, and what this one white hat hacking group is doing is they are now going out and doing intel on hackers and gathering that intel and then building a case and turning it over almost like a citizen's arrest to the Justice Department, and then they're building cases against them. I think there's a future there. And what I've always said, I'm half joking, I'm a history guy too. The way we've settled the wild, wild west was start putting bounties on people's heads and having people come in and register to go after these hackers. And then now we start taking them down with private sector hacking. That's sort of if I was king for, I guess it'd take me a little while to be there, but let's deploy the smart people in the U.S. industry and start taking them down.
I think one last thing I was going to mention was on the storage side, right? So there's technology that's been kind of becoming more prolific, this worm technology. We partnered with the guys at Cloudian that build a S3 compliant object storage platform to use their object locking capabilities and their data immutability. So that's a really solid combination: backup, utility, storage provider that can provide data immutability, and working those together. And yeah, I'm certain HP is working on some stuff like that as well, or has it. That could be a really powerful combination against data disrupted, even if network access is available to said storage appliance, or
even something as simple. So so for example, we saw with the Capital One hack where an AWS employee stole their data, and in the conversations with this person and other people, they said even if you just encrypted your data at rest, even if we just took as simple as thing as when you upload a document into the cloud that you have encryption on it, that basic fact reduces the amount of loss by a huge amount. It's like 60%, because she said I could have stolen all the files, but without the encryption keys, I couldn't have done anything with them. So I think just basically we need to start, embracing the idea of encryption. We always talk about encryption at rest, but also encryption on the fly, and not just VPNs. But why not, if you are doing business with the same company over and over and over again, and the same chief financial officer over and over and over again, why not establish an encrypted tunnel and encryption with that person, exchange keys? That way, I always know that it's that person who's communicating with me to get money transferred. And so if somebody else comes up and they don't have the encryption key, well, then I obviously have sort of just even those kind of things, and using encryption more strategically, and keeping our data secure.
Great advice. Great advice. I like that. One of the things I wanted to ask about is when you touched on data protection, William, and disaster recovery. I guess that's really the last line of defense from ransomware, and that data can be made that it's only read-only. It can't be modified by the attackers. How do you know you can get that data back in a timely manner?
So in terms of how can you prove that you can hit your kind of recovery time objectives that you've established for your organization?
Right.
Testing. Yeah. The thing that no one does ever. We have so many customers that have offsite backup, offsite disaster recovery, or cloud-based disaster recovery, and we give them a test a year for free. They don't pay anything. We encourage them to work with us to test their disaster recovery plan, their technical disaster recovery plan, as we talked about earlier. Maybe not their people one, but to test it, and they just don't do it, right? And it's too hard. It's not important enough, whatever it is. But that's kind of one of the ways. I think that what we're going to see is this massive kind of investment in infrastructure over time as well, right? It's going to drive down all kinds of different costs, and some things are going to become demystified as we get through some of this work from home stuff, and some of this stuff changes. I'm looking at things like, commercial bandwidth, office bandwidth is still something that's very expensive. If you look at like what a provider like ourselves pays a carrier for data transfer versus what a business pays for 500 megabits of data transfer, it's insane. It's crazy, like 20x, 25x the difference. It's the same thing. It's the same concept. Now there's infrastructure costs of building out each office that has to be taken into account, but I think that's what you're going to see. So you're going to see fatter pipes, hopefully fatter than the data growth that we're seeing. And then service providers and or services delivery internally that is well tested, well orchestrated, and ready to go. I think those are some of the kind of the big keys. It's just ensuring that you've got your data, it's being tested, and that's available when you need it.
Well, that's a good point. And you're absolutely right. Nobody tests their backups, and I go, just that simple of a thing is, and I brought up the SimpliVity product. One of the things one of our features of it is to recover a 1 terabyte VM in less than 60 seconds, and so that's one of our big selling points for it, is because speed of recovery is a big part of it. Even with ransomware, if you get hit with ransomware and you recover from backups, you're still down somewhere between 12 and 15 days. in recovering, because once you recover from the backups, can you trust all of your devices that are online? The answer is no, and you have to reload everything. And we've unfortunately learned that the bad guy is going to put the ransomware not only in my machines, in my PCs, it's also going to put it in my printers, going to put it in my routers, and we've seen them putting the ransomware into IoT devices in an attempt to reinfect once you hit it. So ransomware is going to continue to be just the issue, and and so I think recovery is a big part of it, and how fast can you recover? Because days cost money. However many days you are down, it's going to cost you money.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I've read in stories about ransomware attacks, and there's too many times when they paid the ransom because after 2 weeks they just couldn't get their data recovered, even though it was there and they could recover it. It was just taking too long.
Well, that's what I say. Just take a day. Take a day, especially with a company like Williams Group that's going to offer you a free recovery. Why not just take a Saturday, test it? Let's see what, because I mean, I've run into companies that they've gone and looked at their backups, and when they recovered from their backups, there was nothing there. They'd never set the backups up correctly. The person who was doing it from a YouTube video or something silly. And we have to know that what's there, because your CEO comes up to you and says, "Hey, let's recover from backups. Are they good?" And you go, "I think so." Not the level of confidence they're looking for, right?
Yeah, totally. If more CEOs would do that, that'd be great. Like, hop in their head of IT's office and be like, "Hey, everything's down. We need to restore from our backup last night."
Right.
Execute the DR plan.
Deer in the headlights.
I think, yeah, exactly. That's not going to happen.
Right. So third question here, how do we thwart the growing number of phishing attacks? Is that kind of the same answer, James?
Yeah, I don't know if we ever can. I think the biggest part of the number of phishing is only going to increase. And the reason is that cybercrime is so lucrative at this point. It's estimated that next year it'll be a $6 trillion industry, more than the drug cartels are making. And there's so much of this traffic coming out of countries like Nigeria and India and Pakistan and Mexico and Vietnam. And it's only going to continue to be that way. The only thing we can hope for, is we're never going to stop phishing. Statistically, 1 in 20 of your people clicks on every link that comes in or every attachment that comes in. And all I have to, as a bad guy, I have to be right once. And as a defender, I have to be right all the time. So just anticipate you're going to get, hit. Somebody's going to click on the phish. So the question now becomes, I can't stop the cyber, but I can mitigate it. I can make sure that, like William was talking about, microsegmentation. If somebody gets hit in one segment of my network, I don't want it to come outside of that segment. I want to make sure that my threat software locks that area down. I may lose a computer, I may lose a group of computers, but I surely don't want that virus to be able to push across to all of my network, and then I've got 80% of my admin machines down, and then my ransom hits.
Even if you look at stuff that you wouldn't even think, like desktops, you look at most even security focused companies in the past, right? They've got desktop networks, and maybe there's 1 or 5 or 10 or 100, whatever it is, but they have all their desktops on a network together. Like, these desktops have no business talking to each other at all, but yet we just put them on the same network segment and hope everything's okay. Right.
So that's why network analytics. Absolutely. I mean, there's no reason for a peer-to-peer conversation there. There's no reason for one computer to be collating gigabytes of data, right? That's right. That's kind of exactly right.
So the phishing thing, I'm worried about the complexity and sophistication of the attacks more so than I am the growth in them, right? Because people recognize them more than they ever have, right? There's education, there's all kinds of stuff. But as the education grows, that kind of gets people to look at things. People kind of start to feel somewhat expertise around it, and they say, "Oh, I can spot good phishing, and I'm going to click on this one because I know it's not." And the reality is probably it's really not a good one. So
education is still the biggest thing, right? So having an education program built around phishing, but also I've had a lot of companies that have had success setting up reporting mechanisms with positive feedback, so that, for example, you let people report phishing, and whoever reports the most number of phishing successfully in a month gets a $25 gift card to Starbucks. But
Yeah,
just
totally.
a positive reinforcement goes so much further. What's also interesting in phishing is most phishing comes into our networks off hours. So it comes in usually before, especially if it's coming from, outside the United States, which most of it is. So the best people to train on phishing is going to be the people that come in early. So you have your early birds. Every company has somebody who comes in at 6, 7 o'clock. Train those people even more than you train the person who comes in at 9, 10 o'clock, because they're going to have a higher likelihood of seeing those phishing attacks and giving your IT or security staff an opportunity to remove them from the server before your CEO comes in at 10 o'clock or after his golf game or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, great advice. And I have seen where they're having or offering different forms of training for different types of employees. Like the executives
Yep.
would have, special phishing, training to recognize executive attacks and things like that. So
Right.
Yep.
cool stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, let's keep moving on here. We got a lot of good questions. Next one, how do we develop a set of security standards and metrics that are actionable, easy to interpret, and sustainable? That was an actual question from a person on the landing page. Another person said, I need help with compliance and reporting, some sort of framework for that. James, any thoughts?
Yeah, wow, this is such a big one. So the first thing I'm going to say is compliance and security are separate. So don't get those two mixed up. Compliance is usually a much lower bar than the security might be. So compliance, is going to require you to do your, and the reporting framework is going to be somewhat built upon, if it's HIPAA or it's, whoever you're compliant to. Security standards and metrics. All right, so, for example, phishing. Phishing is not just about phishing your people, doing tests, and then saying, I got 17%, I got 16%. It's got to be actionable. I think most of the metrics we run into in the security industry, that's where they fail. They're not actionable, and they're hard to measure. They'll say, we're going to reduce phishing. Okay, well, what does that mean? What is the, how do I frame that up? So I think it's very important to make sure, and I'm going to say sometimes, maybe bringing in some type of consultant, especially if you need to make sure that what you're doing is measurable and you're accountable to somebody. A lot of times what these things are sort of created inside of a security market, and the security team will kind of report them. They might go up to their CISO, but they never reach like the board of directors. Accountability, I think, is going to be a big part of going forward. We were talking, beforehand about the SEC is adding in some Sarbanes-Oxley language into cybersecurity and trying to make the board of directors and the CEOs and the CIOs responsible for cybersecurity. We'll see if that happens or not. I mean, as with a lot of things, it's, I'm not sure you're going to see a whole lot of, CEOs put into handcuffs over it. I think the biggest part of it this is going to be pulling in some sort of external group or putting together a group to make sure that you're putting stuff that is actionable and sustainable. Those are going to be the two biggest words. So.
Okay. And William, what have you seen at PhoenixNAP?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for small companies, I think the most important thing that they do if they're subjected to compliance is to get that under control, right? It's going to have the biggest impact. I think it's going to be the easiest way for the technologists to drive change inside the organization, use the compliance framework to get security. They're not the same thing, but that's kind of the golden standard. We unfortunately have to do so much compliance and so much security. We have complex governance tools and GRC tools that help us kind of crosswalk across multiple standards and help us track metrics and help us do all kinds of things. That's not affordable for every organization. It's really hard. What I would say is pick a framework that you think is solid. And it's going to sound crazy, but I believe that PCI is the best framework for security specifically, because it is the most technically defined framework that we have out there for compliance standards, right? NIST does all kinds of stuff in IST for everybody. There's a ton of stuff that have crazy definitions for security and how you can execute on some of that. But if you can follow PCI and you can do the things in there to the best of your ability, a lot of times, if you're really true and genuinely executing on those things, you're going to get a significant increase in security. You're going to have all kinds of different waypoints created in terms of checking, he said earlier, checking your IDS logs, checking your, doing phishing education, doing all these things are part of that standard now. And it's complex and it's heavy lift, but start there. I think that's a good solid recommendation for the company.
Well, and I would also say, and even small and medium businesses, get a security assessment, get a pen test, whatever you want to call it, but make sure it also includes physical security into that. There's a lot of companies that provide those services locally, there's small businesses providing cybersecurity business, pen testing, because one of the things that'll do is a lot of times those pen tests, if they're done right, they're going to give you action items, right? They're going to give you critical, moderate, low threat things. And that gives you a framework that at least gives you some metrics as to, okay, so here's where I want to be by the end of the year. I want to have this patch, this patch, this patch. And it also helps in budgeting, because when you go forward and say, hey, by the way, we've got a critical vulnerability in our firewall, our north-south firewall is 12 years old and it's out of, well, that's easier to identify versus I just saw a new toy. So I think that's part of it.
Okay, good advice. Yeah, I mean, there's so many compliance standards out there. If you're not, required to comply to a specific one, I do like that idea of, looking at something like PCI and just, what can we do to apply this to us, and then also getting a security assessment from a local company. Great advice. Let's see. Next question, MFA. What's the best way to introduce MFA at my company? William, I'll start with you.
So yeah, I thought about this earlier, right? And it's interesting. It's an interesting challenge. I think it's more of just a record keeping challenge, I would assume, than most. Multi-factor authentication is not particularly difficult to integrate if you are already using some type of identity platform that's modern, right? So if you're using Active Directory, you're using Azure AD, or using LDAP, or pick one, right? I mean, every other all the modern identity management systems have some type of ability to do 2FA or MFA. The hard one, I think, is accounting for all the different technologies that your teams use to understand where your data is going and understand what needs to be controlled with 2FA. And that's the hard one, because probably in a medium-sized enterprise, I don't know, maybe 100, 150 different applications at least that have some type of credential-based login, and you have to understand what all those are and secure all of them to ensure that your data is ultimately secure. And you can organize and prioritize them based on the criticality of the data that's being stored there. And there's all kinds of intricacies that you can build into it, but that's it. And then you have to figure out, okay, what type of identity service do they use, and how does that map, and does Duo or any of them, right? Just pick one, RSA, whatever you want. I also would say that don't spend a ton of time on like what's better than the other one. I find that we've done a lot of investigations into 2FA over the years, and I find that if you can get a list of kind of reputable companies, I won't say that it's commodity at this point, but they all kind of seem to fall in kind of a narrow line of how much it costs per user. So find one, grab it, use it, and just use it everywhere. Like that's the other thing. It's like, just get it in your organization. It doesn't matter.
Well,
how
and William hit on one thing also. If you've done your homework leading up to this, you're probably going to be in a good position. Here's what I mean. You need to identify what are the crown jewels of your data. Ahead of a two-factor, multi-factor authentication, you should know what is the most important part of my network, and start there. So so we're going to go into sort of this idea of the Citadel idea, where what's my central tower? So, let's say you're in oil and gas. Well, my central tower is my OT network. All right, We're going to start at that. We're going to start there, and then you're going to work out from there. And it may be, you may even go, and people kind of shock at this, but you may even go more than 2-factor. You may want to go into a 3-factor authentication or something like that. You may want to have two-person authentication in some places. But once you've established sort of a hierarchy of what data is most important, then you start to say this should have the most and this should have the least. And then, as William says, is absolutely right, is now I go out and talk to the vendors and I can say, okay, well, I need to have X number of seats of this and I need to have X of this. And it really does help kind of get their way. But I'm gonna say one other thing with 2-factor authentication, the best way to introduce it is through your CEO. I have run to too many companies where the CEO or the CIO doesn't think 2-factor authentication is necessary. And if you don't have buy-in at the highest level of your company, it's going to fail, because it's a cultural thing. You're changing. It's a cultural shift in how you're doing logins. Everybody has to be on board. Everybody needs to be doing it. And if they're not, it's probably going to be a failed enterprise before you even get to launch.
Great.
Yeah, great advice. Get buy-in from the executives and then just do it. Just pick something and just get started, because too many companies wait. Next question, what's the best way to secure the influx of IoT devices? Secure the influx of IoT devices that continue to creep into the environment. James.
Yeah, so here we go. This is also kind of creeps into the idea of shadow IT. You've got people in your network that don't want to go through the normal requisition process. They want to do what they want to do, and they're not going to worry about it. This is where you're going to have, and for example, we have our zero trust model, which is the Aruba ClearPass. And one of the first things that I tell any zero trust vendor, and whether it's HP or I have a lot of other companies, number one is you have to identify whatever is plugged into your network or whatever connects up to your network across Wi-Fi. The first job of any software that's managing this is to identify it and then set a policy to it based upon what I've identified it as. If it's a web camera, you know what you're going to do with web cameras. You know where that traffic should flow. But as IoT devices become more and more added onto the network, the first thing is it's an implicit deny. Your software has to give an implicit deny for any device that's plugged in until it's identified. And here's the problem. Convenience and security are divergent. And what I mean by that is that you're going to have people that want to do things that are convenient and it makes their job easier and all of them, blah, 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 but security has to come first. And in that environment, if you are unable to identify the product, the user needs to come to your security staff or to your IT staff and tell them what the product is. If it's not identified, it has no rights on the network. That just has to be the basic of it. And leave it up to the user. If the user wants to use it, they're going to come and talk to you. That's just the nature of how users work. But yeah, we use Aruba's ClearPass, which is part of the HP portfolio, and it's a really good product. It's been recognized for that. So.
Excellent. William, any advice on IoT?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I think that's in understanding the network, understanding what's coming onto the network, and I think it's kind of funny that these basic technologies. I forgot which. Actually, you're a CCIE, aren't you, Dave? One of the 802.11 protocols for the last 20 years has been around device control and security, like a device authentication and introspection based on connection, and we just kind of don't use it. and I don't know why, honestly. It's it's on the network. This port is a VLAN, and if you plug something into it, it's loud. It's in that VLAN. You're good.
Right.
But yeah, I think that's interesting. And yeah, just the network behavioral analysis type side of things, really understanding what traffic's going where, what every device is, and then the data, what data is being transmitted. That's the other kind of thing. IoT is a strange beast. It's got a lot of data it's collecting.
Even something as basic as like a sticky port type thing, where I go into my devices and I don't allow I don't allow something to connect unless I've identified it. I mean, basic as whitelisting of MAC addresses. I mean, all of those kind of things, if I can turn that on across my network and have that policy across, then I can stop a lot of that kind of traffic from coming in, because William's absolutely right. Traffic the data is the key. And I think the statistic is by 2025, we're going to be producing 175 zettabytes of data across our networks, and 72% of that is east-west traffic. Our networks are getting larger, they're getting flatter, but the data is pushing closer and closer and closer to the edge. And because of that, now we've got this massive flows that are kind of coming. A lot of it's going to be IoT. We were talking a little bit about automated cars before. Automated cars produce a tremendous amount of data, and with all the sensors that are on board, and even if that data doesn't come off the car, it still has to be processed at some point on the vehicle, and maybe downloaded at a later point, maybe at when it's in a downtime. But I think we're going to continue to see it, and with 5G coming up, 5G is starting to add in a whole lot of that more east-west traffic as people log in and just pump it. So that's going to only increase.
Yeah, great advice. Great advice. I mean, kind of like those manufacturing companies or warehouses have safety first signs. We need like security first signs in the IT department, and not just the sign, but to actually think that way.
Well, that's like a banner, right? I mean, you should have a banner, right? There's a login banner, and people don't have it. And I ran in this, the FBI, all the time. We'd go out to a company and they wouldn't have a login banner, and I'd say, well, you don't have a login banner, you don't have consent to search, even if they sign something once a year. And it's just really interesting how just really basic things that we used to do have we kind of gone by the wayside. So I think we just have to kind of get back to some basics.
Okay, good advice. So what can we do to? I know we're running kind of short on time here. We're only halfway through the questions, so maybe we should move into the lightning round, if you will.
Let's do it.
Let's go.
William, James, have we covered this one already?
Encryption.
Yeah. Encryption, sure. Agreed.
That's the answer. Okay, nice. Number 8, how do I achieve CCPA and GDPR compliance for more than 100 SQL Server databases? So this is a very specific question, but a very realistic, real-world question as well.
From a generic standpoint, have a lawyer. Make sure you have a lawyer that understands CCPA and GDPR and what those requirements are, and have them on staff.
Okay.
Knowing what data you have.
Yep.
And where it's at. Like, that's it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's critical. First, you got to know what you have before you can protect
That's
it
true.
and ensure compliance.
Yep.
How to do more with less security staff? What products are out there that could help make my job easier and more efficient? William, suggestions on that?
No products. Make everybody in your company part of your security plan and part of your security, right? You need dedicated people. I think James mentioned that earlier. If you don't have dedicated people, you need an MSSP or somebody to help you. But make it everyone's job in the company to care about security. That's how you get 3.5 million InfoSec vacancies filled that aren't happening with security.
If you are applying products, don't fall for shiny light syndrome. You want products that are actually going to improve security and make you more efficient. There's a ton of products that are out there for sale, and a lot of companies are pumping them, that they look really good and they look really great, but in the end, they don't add anything to reducing it. There's a lot of things out there that have machine learning and AI that will actually reduce the workload on your IT staff, which will allow you to take those IT people and make them more security focused. So it's make sure that don't fall, and I know I work for a company that sells product, but when make sure that you're going for what your solution is, not for what looks really good in the shiny lights.
Okay, I like that. So we don't need to hire Batman to just protect us all. Everyone needs to have common sense and protect themselves.
And use your money efficiently. It's very critical for us to use the money you have efficiently. Budgets aren't going up, even though the threat continues to rise. So use your budget well. Make sure that you know where you want to go, and everything should support that goal.
Okay. And then what about visibility? James, how do we get greater security visibility?
We were talking about this before as well. I call it greater data visibility. Know your data, right? William talked about that, knowing what your data is, and then knowing what you want to do with your data. If I'm looking at using my data only from a security standpoint, then I need to make sure that whatever security product I'm having has that visibility. If I'm looking at marketing people, which is a huge thing going forward, people are going to start marketing with the data, then I need to have some sort of data analytics program built in that is going to do that. But I think security visibility is going to come down to, it's going to come down to partly product. And this goes back to the previous question. I know I want to, buy products that give me better visibility. That better be what you're buying. Don't buy something because it can do something a million times a second. Does it look into my SSL traffic or my SSH traffic? Does it give me that kind of visibility? Does it map into other products like Splunk or something else that I might be using for data analytics? But make sure your products integrate. Too many times we buy a black box product and another black box product, and only after we bought the two products do we realize they can't talk to each other. Now you're caught into a place where I have no visibility from product one to product two.
Okay. And William, any suggestions on security visibility?
That's it. I mean, just aggregate data like crazy, find ways to report on it.
Okay. Let's see, moving on, number 11, advice for security in the cloud. William, I'll hand this to you.
I think that the biggest advice I can have is either understand that you're taking the approach of all in on a single cloud provider and maximize the security that they provide you, right? So if you're going to go to AWS, make sure you are insane about the security technologies that they have there and you're using every last one of them for what you're doing. If you're using somebody like me, same thing applies. You have to basically just kind of take it. But here's what I would say is that if you are going to take this cloud agnostic, multi-cloud approach to your data, the CIOs on the call, right? You cannot get locked into the PaaS security frameworks that each cloud provides. You have to continue to do things yourself. You have to use, some, I wouldn't say open is probably the wrong word, but there are lots of tools that are being developed to help with this problem, right? And some of them are open source, right? You have to be able to aggregate data from multiple sources, right? If you're a small business, my recommendation is don't try these things. You're going to inherently make yourself less secure, less available by trying to have these giant complex, I do everything myself in all kinds of different cloud providers. It's probably not going to be successful for you. So that's kind of my generic approach. But for those guys, all I'll say is it will get better. Those tools that I was just talking about are going to get better at securing data and helping with data transmission across different cloud providers and different infrastructure. It's just not there yet. So you end up with this kind of divergent plan if you try to do it.
Okay. Yeah, I think William's advice is spot on. And if you're going to do it with somebody who knows what they're talking about. So many times people who jump into the cloud and they have no idea what they're talking about, and they end up with what they'll call a misconfigured server, but it's configured exactly the way you asked for it because you didn't ask for anything. So work with companies, that's where even through HPE, we have groups like Cloud Technology Partners, which is one of our partners, which helps you determine what am I trying to do? Why am I using the cloud? What do I think I'm going to gain from the cloud? And then maybe make our expectations a little bit more realistic and not fall for kind of I think the cloud's going to do everything for me. It may do some things, but don't create more security problems.
Okay. Excellent advice. We've been focusing really on answering questions from the audience. We've done a great job with that. If we were to just give a quick overview or pitch on each one of the companies, why don't we do that for just a moment here? William, tell us why a PhoenixNAP is important in helping companies solve their security and data protection challenges.
Yeah, so BXNAP is one of the leaders in the world for data protection specifically, so offsite backup and disaster recovery in the cloud. We built this because we care about information security. We built this because we understand that these problems are very hard. And for the last 2 years, we've been working on building a cloud service that is specifically designed for the small, medium business to move their critical workloads into an environment where we work with you to take care of all the pieces of information security, right? We don't do them all for you. but we do a lot of them for you, and we show you how you can accomplish the rest of them. It's really, you know, it's built for that medium-sized business. If you're a large enterprise, you're gonna need to do a lot of these things yourself. You're gonna need to have a different plan. It's an easy button of sorts to security without, unfortunately, being very easy. It's still gonna take a lot of work on your side, and we're hoping that this can be transformative for that small, medium business that struggles every day just to get their data in a very basic, secure state.
Okay, excellent. And William, why HPE? Or I'm sorry, James, why HPE?
I was like, yeah, I'll wait for William to give me an answer. So HPE's always been, we had started off as, you know, a server company, and we produce the world's most secure industry level servers. What we've also started to do is understand that it's not just about servers, it's about data. And so one thing we've been pushing for, and our CEO has by 2022, we want to offer everything as a service. We are cloud agnostic. Doesn't matter who you're doing your cloud services with, we will allow you to have a seamless experience across all of your, you know, all of your product lines. And so we work together with that. In addition, we are also moving forward with, you know, like our Aruba acquisition, you know, with things like ClearPath and a zero trust model that doesn't just go through the apps level. You know, most zero trust models are apps, VMs, OS. Our zero trust goes all the way down to the firmware of our servers. And so we think, you know, we seriously believe that we have, you know, the best server on the market. You know, but the problem we've never done is we've never put the messaging well, and we've always aimed too high. And so one of our other thing that we're doing now is we are pushing our servers into the small and medium sector. We now have products priced at you know, at places that small and medium businesses can afford our micro servers. We have them on the shelf, so it's not like, you know, you have to tune it individually. And so we think that when you get into the relationship with HPE, start using our servers, you're going to find that the service you're going to get from us is going to be completely different than you'll get from other service providers.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I want to remind everyone in the audience to download the 2 handouts you see there on the screen in your audience console. And before we go, I want to award the 3 Amazon $100 gift cards. Those are going to Tony Salazar from Texas, Seth Waller from North Carolina, Bonnie Runemus from Illinois. Congratulations. We'll reach out to deliver those prizes. Again, I want to thank you to William and James. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Have a good day, guys.
Thank you for sharing your expertise. And thank you to PhoenixNAP and HPE for supporting today's Security PanelCast. And thank you to the audience for joining us. Hope you learned a lot and had a great time. I know I did. Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next time.
Be safe.